All right. If we're ready with the fake praise, I'll get started. Yeah, Will, you're good? Kurt, you're always ready, I can tell.
Yes.
I'm always ready.
Always ready. Bringing it. Slinging it and bringing it.
I like that.
Oh, I do too. I want to write that down.
I'm going to add that to the lexicon. I might attribute it to you. I'm not sure yet. Maybe.
I'm going to have it recorded under my name in about 30 seconds. So I think I'm going to own this in 3. Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everybody, to the Work in Progress podcast, where we're slinging it and bringing it. Will, what do you think?
I think that's great that you just pulled that right out there.
I made it up right on the spot. Who knew?
You did.
Time for banter. Couple things. One is we're going to keep announcing this, but we have the one and only Lindsay Boggs on our live podcast on the Halloween day, 10/31.
Nice.
So that's super
Spooky.
exciting. Here's another thing. We made a decision. Remember what the decision was?
You did or we did?
We did. Well, I did, but I'll say we.
You're not that involved. What did we collectively decide?
Remember what we decided a few hours ago?
About the panel.
The live show.
Yeah.
We are too flipping busy, and we just made a decision to push our 1-year anniversary live panel show, brought to you by the good people at Earfluence. There's your plug, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Gilligan.
We're going to do it in January. It's just too busy in Q4. So I'm proud of us.
I'm proud of you and us, and somehow me too. Hey, Kurt, you know Jason pretty well, don't you? You close.
Yeah. We're huge fans of the Earfluence folks.
Good.
To be on the podcast done by that team and so many other podcasts that we've been involved with.
So good. Have you used his studio in the Commons?
I don't think so.
That's where I am. Yeah. Anyway, enough about them. This is our show. But good people, good dudes. And then we're going to be a little asynchronous here, but tomorrow in real time, 4 weeks ago when this comes out, we announced our startup focused culture of communication workshop. So that drops tomorrow at 11. Super excited about that.
Say that again, faster.
In real time 4 weeks ago. That was the part where I just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, I couldn't keep up either. But anyway, by the time this comes out, 4 weeks ago, we will have announced tomorrow that our startup-oriented culture of communication workshop will have come out.
That's right.
I'm John Lane.
I'm Will Barfield in my DeLorean.
And we are
a work in
progress. So nice to be here. And Will, like every week, we have a guest.
Yes, thankfully. It would be lonely without a guest.
Yeah. Hello, Kurt.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm well. You want to ask how Will's doing?
Will, how are you doing? I wasn't going to, but I am now.
we have rules of etiquette.
I'm better now that I've been acknowledged. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So
I've known Will for a really long time, in case the audience doesn't know.
Yeah. Beautiful. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Please.
I am Kurt Merriweather, co-founder of the Diversity Movement. I've had a long, eclectic career working on a variety of different things. I look at the intersection of business, technology, and now diversity, equity, and inclusion to help organizations build stronger teams. And so I'm excited to be with you today. I'm also a graduate of The Ohio State University, and looks like they got the football team turned around this past week. So feeling better about that. And also spent some time on the West Coast. And John and I have a mutual friend who I went to Stanford with. So lots of points of connection with.
Is that Blair?
Yes, Blair. Yes, Blair. Blair Shane now.
I've not heard from Blair Shane. Hi, Blair. In months and months and months. I got an email from her this morning.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So I'm gonna tie that back.
Tie it together. Tell her I said hello.
Of course I will. Yeah, of course I will.
A quick point of reference for when the show launches, that Kurt is referencing a last-second touchdown win for Ohio State over Notre Dame.
Yes, who knows what's going to happen when this gets released. But right now, ranked in the top 4. We'll see.
Right now, flying high.
A couple hard games, but Penn State's coming up, and that might be around the time that the show comes out. So,
well, we will see. We will see. All right. Well, we could talk about football, but that's a different pod. Let's get into it. So, Will, what happens to me often?
I mean, just you'll be walking down the street or at the grocery store, and someone will walk up to you and say, "John, how in the world do you unlock those superpowers in Kryptonite?"
That is just so true.
Now, I have no idea. Get away from me.
You crazy person. I will say, if anybody knows about this, then I don't know how they don't know how it works. But let's just say our little bit is actually working here. We use the OAD personality assessment, and that is what will unlock your superpowers, your kryptonite. It is a highly accurate and easy to administer assessment. We like it because it eliminates social desirability distortions. If you want to know what that is, give me a call or DM. And it's built to the standards of all of these fine institutions, which means you can trust the data. So that's our OAD plug. And then this is how it begins to show up. So in OAD, we have a summary view, and we call that the leadership style matrix. And that is a little 2x2, where anyone who takes the assessment will get plotted according to the generalist specialist. We call this the substance on the y-axis, or socially oriented, technically oriented communication style on the middle x-axis. I happen to be a socially oriented generalist in the builder quadrant. And Will, what am I?
You are a negotiator, sir.
Good for you. You remembered. And then
I wrote it on my
hand. That's your hand, buckaroo. Will is a technically oriented generalist in the architect quadrant, and he is a
developer.
Beautiful. And we haven't had a lot of these, but Kurt is a technically oriented generalist in the architect quadrant, but he is an independent generalist, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. So that's how we produce the strengths and weaknesses, the superpowers and kryptonite.
Although I would argue that there's more to me than that, but that's one way to describe it.
It's so interesting that you said that. Will, ask your question.
Kurt, how does it feel to have yourself reduced to this two-dimensional table, sir?
Don't love it. I don't love it.
Go on.
Love it. Should I continue?
Oh, please, the floor is yours.
Why don't you love it?
So putting on my, so I'm also a diversity, certified diversity executive in DEI professional. One of the things that I see that's challenging with some assessments is sometimes there's bias built into them. And then there's also a moment in time when I remember when I took this, and I remember what I was thinking and feeling, and I was feeling a little disconnected. And so I think some of that bled into my results. It'd be interesting to see how they may have shifted. Now, there's some general things that are in here that I think are true. It's the reasons that people behave this way that we don't always know about. And so getting to the why behind how people present is important. That's one of the things that we do. as we're doing our own work. And so making sure the assessment is one of many things that are being used, especially when you're making hiring decisions or promotion decisions or other kinds of decisions.
Absolutely.
And so that would be my plug for how I feel about being reduced to a 2x2 matrix. I would say there's some things about this that are right, but that's not who I am. It's part of how I present, which may not actually be who I am. So that's what I would add to
that is super insightful. And then I'll just say we agree with you. There are some assessments that say hire, don't hire, or sort in, sort out. We never look at that. We are a complement of empirical data that are part of a thoughtful process to hire, all of which includes knowledge, education, skills, and experience, your diversity goals, every other thing you can put in there. We're an added layer. And then I'll just say, not to get too much into a commercial, the way OAD works is we have a candidate selection tool that the hiring team goes through, and without getting too much in the weeds, creates the ideal OAD personality trait output. So it looks sort of like what we have for you, but it's not a person, it's an ideal candidate. And then we compare the candidates to the ideal, and we produce what's called a fit and gap report. And that fit and gap report is what says, here's where they have a fit, here's where they have a gap. It's up to the hiring team to decide where does that data fall in terms of their decision making. So we definitely try to be much more of a part of a process as opposed to just the process.
Right. No, it's important because this doesn't tell you what the answer is. And I think that's one of the challenges is sometimes that folks use assessments and say, this is the answer based on these profiles, and trying to decide what the ideal candidate, that process in and of itself, I think leaves people out potentially. So I think hiring.
The whole thing is we sort in. Our job is to sort in rather than give reasons to exclude somebody.
Right.
But that's a different podcast.
It is.
Let's break down Kurt along the OAD relative traits: assertiveness, extroversion, patience, and detail orientation. According to the assessment, on the day that Kurt took it, his most dominant trait, which means to the right, is his P for patience. P for patience is often described as somebody who is process oriented, they're precise, they're not the type of person who gets swayed by the time of day or time of month. They don't operate based on an urgency clock. Will and I both operate on an urgency clock, so you have that measure to you, followed by your assertiveness. I think we can all agree from that last answer that Kurt's assertiveness is reasonably well developed. Little joke there, no one's laughing.
And then, I don't know. I mean, we're all a work in progress.
I love it. Look at him using our line. Then going from right to left, we look at detail orientation, which is more about compliance and structure. As a generalist, Kurt, all three of us, frankly, are comfortable with ambiguity. We're a little bit venturesome. That allows us to operate in worlds that aren't fully developed. I'm going to bet that the DEI world is a work in progress in and of itself. And so that's helpful for you. And then the E being the least dominant or the subordinate trait, we look at that against the D is in the relative traits. And this tells us that Kurt's communication style is pretty tight. It's not wordy. It's not more on the persuasive side. It's more factual and analytically oriented. How does that sound?
I think that by and large that's true, but I can flex.
You had me at by and large that's true. So great. So that's Kurt. And now Will gets to talk.
Thank you both. And Kurt, love that. Love the honesty and the frank evaluation. And you're right. These tools are just that. They are meant for helpful analysis, but not for decision making, nor should they be. And things that you do for a living and with diversity movement, dovetail nicely with these types of tools to help with, showing the full picture of the person. And thrilled to have you here to discuss that with us. On the slide here. So this is the generic trait readout for anyone who lands in the architect, independent, generalist, blue, beautiful square in the upper left. Of these, we're just going to single click on this. Is there one here that you believe is, accurate, you've noticed with yourself, or others have brought up as a trait that stands out?
I guess the analytical piece, I'll jump on that because I know we're going to talk about some other things in a bit. But I have a data orientation. I can take data and manipulate it and share it in a variety of different ways. And the thing that I like to do with it is to tell stories around it. So it's one thing to look at data and say, here's what it means, but how do you explain it in a way that other people understand it?
Yeah.
So it's one thing for me to understand it, different for other people to understand it. And so that's one of the things that I spend time doing, is being able to explain data to a variety of different audiences. And so having a product development, product management background, it's really important to be able to do that. So I would say is one of my superpowers, is the ability to take data and make it somewhat interesting, hopefully, for other people as they think through it.
I would agree with that, having seen you do it. Kryptonite, right? So here we are talking about the weaknesses, the parts of us that are exhibited under stress. Is there one of these bullets on this generic page that speaks to you with similar accuracy to the other side?
I think, let's see, I'm trying to word this in a way where I'm not stealing again from what's coming. Sometimes I assume that other people are following me, so I don't necessarily take people through my thought process enough as I should, because it's easy for me to understand data. So sometimes I assume other people are understanding data at the same rate that I am. And so I have to slow down to take people through my thinking around how I arrived at how I did the analysis first, and then how I arrived at the decision, and then what that means. And sometimes I do that pretty quickly. So it's not that I'm inattentive to detail, because I'm an engineer by training. So that's not the issue. It's slowing down to get people to understand my thought process. So that's what I would say leads to somebody saying, oh, you just don't pay attention to detail. And sometimes I gloss over things faster than I should. So I think
because you understand the detail so well, so quickly.
Right.
And to them, it feels like skimming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Kurt, we've already talked about your analytical skills. You applied them to the results of this process when you and John were communicating pre-show and looking at your results and readout. And you put virtual pen to paper here and, scribe some things for us that I hope you'll walk us through. Can you talk through these bullets with us, please? And beware, there may be super sharp rapier wit questions fired from over here on this side of the screen.
Possibly.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the rapier
Possibly.
wit.
Or I might take a nap.
Well, I mean, I've seen you do it before. So
right in the middle of a meeting.
It would be. I wouldn't be surprised. So should I go through these in order?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's your show, baby. Whatever you want to do.
Okay. All right. So the first thing, it sounds like arrogance, but it's not. So I do believe I'm right when I come to a conclusion. So that's more about the confidence piece. It's not that I'm arrogant about it or narcissistic, but I do believe my points of view are right. And so when I'm thinking about things, it's because I've had experience across lots of different things, that usually how I'm thinking about something is a right way to think about it, or a valid way to think about it. So I have that self-belief, and as a result, and that's gotten me to where I am in my career. And that's something that carries me through on a daily basis. So I think that's important for anybody, no matter where you land on any of these quadrants, is and may be more difficult for others. But I do believe that I'm right. I can balance concepts and apply them to a variety of different things. So that I am a music lover. I play jazz piano. I used to run product at a music technology company. I used to work at Discovery. So I bring all these different things that I've learned, and then I can apply them to different areas. So I would think about, this show. How do I think about this as a TV show? What are the things that we could do to promote it and advance it? And so I'm able to use these different things and apply them to different contexts. And so that helps me innovate and create new ideas because I'm able to think about something and just look at it from a slightly different perspective because I can blend all these different experiences that I've had. And then lastly, I just don't give up. When I want to figure something out, I figure out how to figure it out. What I'm learning to do more, kind of fast forwarding to Kryptonite, is not doing that by myself. And carrying other people along with me. So having a way forward is important, but there's a downside to being persistent, especially if you're part of a company that has limited resources and you're just sure you're right and you keep chasing an idea. That's a good thing to do. That's something that entrepreneurs do, but there's also a downside to that. So I'll flip to that. If you flip the slide, or do you have, I don't want to steamroll you. Do you have questions that I can, where's the rapier?
John, John and I are going to leave and just let you run the show.
Yeah,
I don't think we're
better than autopilot.
Here's my tough question for the slide.
Yes.
Right? You got one choice. Your favorite jazz album. One.
Oh God.
What's the first thing you play?
Kind of Blue, Miles Davis.
Oh, it's the same one. Really?
My son's name is Miles for a reason.
I love that. Let us get back to the topic at hand. You saw me flip backwards, and the reason was that I wanted to remember what your EC and your CR were. EC is a measure of decision-making process. We like to think of it as heart versus head. A low score is somebody who makes decisions with a lot of empathy and feeling. A high score is somebody that is just more logic-minded. Doesn't mean they're not empathetic. It just means their decision process is logical as they see it. You're a 9 out of 10. The second is creativity. And creativity in our world is a measure of how much conventional thinking a person will put towards coming up with a solution. 0 means they're going to read the manual again and again. 10 means we don't need a manual. We're going to figure it out on our own. You're a 10 out of 10 on that. So you are a creative problem solver. You add your other traits, the ones that make you persistent. You are a persistent creative problem solver, and you're not going to stop until you figure it out.
No. Which is, part of the entrepreneurial streak that has, led your career.
Correct.
Yep.
You were pretty sure you were right to make that journey. I mean, you'd proven it to yourself. You'd looked at the data. Off we go.
Off we go.
I don't see failure. Kryptonite. So Kurt has relatively few weaknesses, but he's willing to talk about a couple of them here.
I got lots of them.
You pick some and put them down. Talk to us about these.
You were also riffing on the last slide, so don't lose that thread. That was great.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about the downside of persistence, and I think this is part of the challenge is that I bite off more than I probably should, and that creates two challenges. One, that gives me a lot of stuff that I think I can do, where I just can't do everything. And when you're in a small organization, you try to do everything because there's no other choice.
Correct.
But that's not the right way to operate as you scale up. And so when I'm juggling a lot of things, back to what I was saying before, I could gloss over details. And then when I'm trying to get stuff done, I'm not communicating about the why as much as I should. So then people are like, I'm not sure exactly where you're going with your thought or what you're thinking about. And part of that comes with innovation. So there was an interesting quote. I was doing some work looking at a training course that Amazon had put together, and it had this quote that said, people who innovate are often misunderstood. And one of the reasons that is because they're thinking about things ahead of where other people typically are, and so they're often misunderstood. So that puts a premium on communicating that maybe other people don't have to have. So how do you paint a vision of this thing that you haven't done yet to explain it to other people? That's the heart of being an entrepreneur, is storytelling. And so I have to remember to slow down to do some of those things about here's why this matters. Here's what the impact is going to be. Here's how this is going to happen versus just trying to do the work. And then there's some stuff that just isn't going to work, no matter, or shouldn't work. Like, you could make it work, but what's the impact of doing it? And so being able to say, you know what, we got to stop working on this. It's not going to have the desired outcome we want, and it's time to go on and move on to something else. So for someone who sometimes gets wrapped up in their own ideas or products or projects or businesses, being able to pull the plug on things when they're not working, even though you believe you can do it, is something that I've been working on a lot to be able to be a more effective leader, more effective teammate, is to do a better job of listening to the people who are around me, so that I don't go off into a corner and try to execute something that shouldn't be executed.
Hey, Kurt, I'm going to kind of ball two questions up together and throw them at you and let you answer them as I read through that slide and then listen to you talk. There's two things that come to mind for me. I just love for you to address, transparently, because I know you will. One, delegation. For someone who likes to juggle a lot of things, feels like he can, is confident, will overcommit, has talked about slowing down so I don't leave others behind. How do you deal with delegation as a leader when you scale up, right? Because as you scale and grow, more people in the org means Kurt can't own everything. He's got to delegate down. How do you deal with that? And the delegation piece is easy, hard. Have you figured out some methods to make it more effective? And then when that idea that you are certain is going to work does not work, how do you deal with letting that go and moving on? And is there pain of loss associated with that? Can you store up those two questions and then hit them?
Yeah. Those are two helpful questions. So delegating, part of that comes from wanting to control things. And so but you can't control everything without scaling. And so it's a figuring out how to balance those two things. And the key thing is to work with people and thinking about coaching. So getting into a coaching mindset. What can I do to support someone so that they can grow? So when you think about the fact that you're robbing people of a growth opportunity because you're not delegating, then that's a different way to think about how you scale. And so that's an important piece. And then making sure you have regular check-ins and recognizing that other people may not do things the way that you would do them, and being all right with that, and recognizing that because people have their own ability to do things, that they're going to come up with ideas you wouldn't have thought of. And then as a result of that, the output is going to be better, because sometimes not delegating comes from a place of selfishness, believing that you can do things that you can't. So that's the first question, or the answer to the first question. Having one issue. We're going to have to cut this out for sure. So my battery's about to die, so I need to go plug back in. How much time do we have?
3 minutes.
Okay, cool. So I think my battery should last for 3 minutes.
Okay.
The second part of the question.
Pain of loss.
What'd you say?
Pain of loss.
Pain of loss. Mm-hmm. Pain of loss. I would be sad if my computer stopped working. The issue is that people wrap themselves up into projects versus recognizing that failure is part of the process. And so it's easy to say that. It's much harder to do it. But if you're trying to do something that doesn't work, well, what do we learn from that? So it's this idea of fixed mindset versus growth mindset. So if you think about failure as an opportunity to grow and learn new things, then yeah, I lost out on this. It didn't work like I wanted, but I'm going to apply what I learned on the next thing. So I'm not going to make that same mistake again. Or, but what were the things that you could take away from what happened? So those are things that I try to work on for myself, is to say, yeah, this didn't work, but why didn't it work? But what can we do instead?
Yeah.
And it's the what's next? What can we do? What are we going to unlock as a result of the so-called failure? Because deciding not to do something isn't necessarily a failure.
It's a decision.
It's a choice.
So, Will, hang on.
Yes,
I'm going to take that last answer and I'm going to make it the leadership lessons. And let's skip over this and go to who's next before his computer runs out.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Oh, all your ideas are okay.
Okay.
Except that one.
Was that passive aggressive? Yeah, we're skipping. So who's next, Kurt? Is there someone you can think of that you interact with professionally? Maybe you went to college with, maybe they're a coworker, maybe there's some, who knows? But is there someone that you believe would participate in this process, enjoy it, get something out of it, and apply it?
Yeah, so there's a friend that I met recently. His name is Charles Inokon. I don't know if you've met Charles. So
Spell it, please.
Say it again.
Spell it, please.
Charles Inokon, Inokon. So he's working on a fintech startup, and recently got admitted to. He's been there've been so many things on LinkedIn I've seen recently, but is doing a lot of great stuff and is doing some work with CED and some other places.
Oh, great.
Awesome. Can't wait to have fun.
But really interesting story. Curious to see how things land for him, but he's trying to provide microloans to underrepresented folks that need help with their businesses and help them with financial literacy.
Love it.
Oh, it's spectacular.
Microloans is such a powerful tool.
So I think you all will have a great time.
Thank you.
And he's doing some great stuff. So definitely want to get him plugged in. And he's doing a lot of work with Raleigh Founded, and so that's how we.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, great.
Well,
all right.
John will ask for your help with making that connection.
Absolutely.
Sure. Happy to.
I'm John Lane.
I'm Will Barfield.
And we are a work in progress. Kurt, thank
amazing
you.
Show.
Great episode.
Just as expected.
Yeah, love it. Super awesome. Bye, everybody.
Let's on off for his battery.
Thanks, everyone. And thank the two of you for putting up with me.
Oh, we loved it. Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions. Available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Lane and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Lane. Thanks for watching. See you next week.